So, Detective Pikachu is coming out, and we're possibly getting a Sonic the Hedgehog movie trailer soon. I wanted to talk about my thoughts on like video game movies, how I think a video game movie would work, and I don't know, just like the potential future of what these films could impact if they're both good. They could be like the next generation of MCU or like comic book movies or something, who knows? We're getting this new Pokemon movie and we're getting a Sonic movie. We're also getting a Metal Gear film, and we're getting a Mega Man film, and there's rumors saying we're getting a Metroid movie, and a rumored Donkey Kong movie. Damn, there's a lot of films. And for the longest time, a lot of people would diminish the concept of video game film adaptations because we've had so many bad movies, Mario Bros, Street Fighter, which my cousin was actually in. Um, we've had, a lot of bad stuff. But and a lot of people say that it's because video games are essentially just better advancements to films. Like it's unnecessary to make a movie based off of something that's already expansive enough for something that's better than movies. Although I don't necessarily disagree with that, I don't think it's impossible to make a good video game movie. And the reason why I say that is because Japan has already done it. There are so many anime adaptations of video games, and they're all like films. There's an Animal Crossing movie, there's a Bayonetta movie, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of Japanese there's a Mario movie in Japan that's actually good. So I don't think it's impossible. If Japan can do it, we could probably do it. And here's the thing is that I've been looking, because I've been trying to figure this out. I've been looking at all of these video game movies and looking at like all the production team people that have worked on them. Almost all of them are made by bad production team people. Almost all of them have previously worked on like really bad movies that aren't even based off of video games. The reason why we have bad video game movies is because they're not made by good production teams. That's the reason why. Okay, there were two video game movies though that did have good production teams that were made in America, and that was the recent Tomb Raider movie and Rampage. And guess what? Okay, they're not great, but they have the highest percentage on Rotten Tomatoes of all out of all video game movies. They're probably the best two that we've made here. Some people actually like those films too. Like maybe not professional critics, but there are like smaller groups of like YouTube critics that do genuinely like Tomb Raider and Rampage. I personally think they're okay, but yeah, I'm just saying. And not only that, but we have good video game shows. We have Sonic Boom. We have the Castlevania series. That's technically an anime, but it was written here in America. We have the Earthworm Jim series. If we can make good shows, why can't we make good movies? And the production teams that make the shows are also good production teams. And yeah, I really don't think it's impossible to make a good video game film. There's so many good stories in video games. There's so many awesome opportunities. Why has this not happened yet? And I think Detective Pikachu is probably going to be the first really good one. It's going to blow everybody away. And I not to sound like a hipster, I'm going to go on to my thoughts about Detective Pikachu now. Not to sound like a hipster, but as soon as they announced that they were making a Detective Pikachu movie, a lot of people were all like, oh, it's going to be so horrible. Why would they do this? It's so stupid. Video game movies are bad and all that stuff. I knew this was going to be good because as soon as I saw that it was being written by the people that worked on Guardians of the Galaxy, people who worked on DreamWorks films and stuff, I knew immediately thinking, this might be the first really good one. And then when the trailer finally came out, I was like, holy crap. And it turned out better than I expected. It was so good. There's so much like snarky, clever dialogue already. It's staying true to the game while also expanding upon it. And that's really what you need to do with an adaptation. Like comic book movies didn't used to be, comic book movies used to be pretty bad, but then they improved after MCU and some pretty good DC films. And the trick that they do with comic book movies, especially MCU, is that they stay true to the original source material, but they still expand and make changes on it so it works as a movie and not as a comic book. That's what they need to do with video game movies. That's what Detective Pikachu is doing. And I've played the Detective Pikachu game. I can already see so many similarities to the story in Detective Pikachu, the movie, that there are in the game. but there's also a lot of things that they're expanding on. That is exactly what they do with comic book movies, so that's really good. One thing I also want to mention is that we recently had the Alita Battle Angel movie, and that movie was based off of a manga, and it's really good. Okay, so a lot of critics don't think it's that good, but most audiences and like smaller critics like Nostalgia Critic, they'll agree that it's a pretty good film. And I saw that movie. I made a first impressions video of it. You can go watch it. I thought it was great. And the reason why it's so good is because it faithfully adapts to the source material while also expanding on it. And you know, it's exactly how a manga or an anime adaptation should be and what to expect. And it's a pretty good film. Like, even if you're not a fan of the manga or the anime, the OVA of Alita Battle Angel, you could probably still find enjoyment out of it. It's really great. Detective Pikachu, the video game, is kind of like an anime. There's a lot of cutscenes in it. It has that same cheesy English dub that's in it. It has that same kind of anime vibe. I think that what they're doing with the Detective Pikachu movie is that they're doing the same exact thing that they did with Alita Battle Angel, where they're faithfully staying true, but again, just expanding on it. And just they probably watched the cutscenes and then thought, okay, how do we rework this to work as a 1 hour and 30-minute film? And that's exactly what they're doing. Sorry, I've been saying exactly so many times, but it's incredible that this film is happening. I think it's going to be really good. And another thing I like is the animation. I like that movies are doing this. I usually don't like CGI. I prefer traditional. I wish we had traditionally animated films again. But I mean, the CGI in Detective Pikachu and movies like Sponge Out of Water, it's so impressive how they're able to turn these, you know, animated cartoonish characters, how they translate them into the real world while still looking exactly the same. They just have realistic textures onto them. I think that's really, really cool. So we just saw Detective Pikachu, and we just got out. We're at Ben and Jerry's, and I got this thing called a coffee Buzz Buzz, and there's a reason why I did that, because in this movie, Pikachu's obsessed with coffee. A lot of product no, I'm just kidding. There isn't any. Yeah.
I love how you said we, like, yeah, we know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Who's we? Right?
Yeah. This is Winter, this is Soup. And, yeah, it's... This movie, I talked about in the beginning of this video, I recorded before talking about my thoughts. I talked about how, like, video game movies, what they need to do, they need to expand on it. In most video game movies, they either stay extremely true to the original, which just makes it really, you know...
It's respectful to the fans.
Yeah,
also.
and that's fine, but, like, general audiences aren't gonna get that.
Yeah.
But, for this, they expanded upon that, and there's also video game movies that just do nothing at all with, like, you can clearly tell they don't care, like the Doom movie or the Mario Bros movie or Street Fighter, and yeah, they just don't work out. But this, you can clearly tell that the people who were working on this, they were fans.
Yeah, you could tell that it was...
They had their audience in mind and considered...
You can tell that if it was for just general audience who didn't know Pokemon, it made sense, but you could also tell that people who have seen Pokemon before could connect to, like, oh yeah, this was in the original cartoons and
in a
all
nutshell,
that. Or anime, if you're that person.
If you're a fan of Pokemon, you're gonna like the movie. If you're not a fan, but, like, you're like, oh, my kid's seen it, then you're also gonna like it, because it's an appealing movie.
I should say that in the trailers, a lot of the trailers, some of the biggest parts that happen in the film, but that doesn't ruin the experience by any means, even if you've seen the trailer 50 million times like I have.
Also, some parts of the trailers weren't in the movie that I saw.
Yeah.
Like Pikachu dancing?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah, I didn't,
It's like, hey, look at how cute Ryan Reynolds is in a Pikachu body.
I mean, Ryan Reynolds is cute either way, so.
I should mention that, so on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 63%, and I looked at all the reviews from the critics. The audiences seem to love it, but the critics seem to be kind of iffy about it. Most of the reviews I read from them them saying that, like, oh, it's a wholesome movie, it's too emotional, or oh, it's just trying to hook up a sequel and not doing its own thing. No, I disagree with that. Just like with Alita Battle Angel, this movie, the good thing about it is that it creates a good movie first, and then kind of hints or develops that there may be other Pokemon movies, which, by the way, you know, when most people were little, most people that like Pokemon, we always imagined that, like, oh, what would happen if Pokemon were in the real world or anything. This really, like, I feel
puts
like
that imagination.
I feel like, yeah.
I like how, like, I like how, like, rather than be like, this is a Pokemon movie, look, it's, whoa, you remember this one?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, hey, there's people and the video game. This is a video game, we gotta make sure that we introduce it's a video game movie. No, they just make it a thing that happens in universe. It's just kind of a thing that happens, and it's natural. People go with it, and that's what helps, like, make the movie flow.
I really liked certain twists with the movie. When he said the doctor, I thought for sure it was the son, but, you know, that kind of ended up changing. I didn't expect it to be the actual guy who made Rhyme City.
Yeah.
It was insane. There were a lot of plot twists. There were, man.
I mean, they weren't intense plot twists.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they were
The movie was
clever.
kind of predictable.
Yeah, I
but
predicted
it was,
some of
It was predictable.
But,
it was
like,
kind of a good
you're still engaged with it, and that's another thing, is that in video game movies, you're trying to get the same experience that you had with that game. But here, like, it's just, you can just view it as a film. It's trying to be a film. It's not trying to be like the video game. But there are references for fans and stuff. There's stuff that fans can enjoy here. But anyone could watch this movie, and it's great.
I mean, Me Too being held captive and, you know, being experimented on, that was very true to the original.
Yeah. That was in the first Pokemon movie. And I keep forgetting, when I saw the trailer, I keep forgetting we had Pokemon movies in the theater before this. It's just, this was the most major.
This was live action.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's something we didn't even mention at all, is that the animation in this film, I love that movies are doing this. I love that they're staying true to the original look. They're just adding CGI textures, which makes it, it doesn't make it look creepy.
Pikachu looks so soft.
Yeah, you just want to...
him.
It doesn't, like, stray too far into, like, the uncanny valley where it's just like, man, you just slapped a Pikachu texture on a rat and it looks not very appealing.
Yeah.
Like, I like how you can take the renders from the movie and then you trace over it and it's near identical to the actual characters themselves.
Yeah.
Without going too far into uncanny valley territory or something like that.
There was also something that bothers me about, like, animated movies and just films that have the PG just slapped onto it, even though there's nothing wrong with them. For example, Inside Out, the Lego movie. There's nothing wrong with those movies that kids are gonna get like.
And they'll be like guys, it's too intense for children to have feelings over cartoon characters. That's why we gotta slap the PG logo onto it.
But this movie deserved a PG. This is definitely a PG movie because there was
hell.
There was more swearing than
more than once. Woo.
Just like Spider-Verse is that I think this is a movie that does deserve the PG, and it's great to see them doing that more. It's great to see animation take more risks. I mean, this is a video game movie.
A bird.
Oh, there's a bird. No, that's a Pokemon. I don't know. No.
I also noticed one thing is that they didn't have animals in the movie.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, what if every animal in our world right now is just Pokemon and we just underappreciate them?
Yeah, I appreciate that they just try to make Pokemon. I said that already.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's a thing.
That just proves how amazing it was, though. And, you know, the pee and there is a bit of potty humor, but the reason why I think it's tolerable, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, is because Pikachu's an animal.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of,
They don't have, they're not the same context-wise like humans. Like, we have the whole concept of personal space, and then you got Lickitung just looking up Will Smith's face in the train.
I mean, to me, that was just like a dog running up to you. Yeah. But the environment fits well, the humor is good, the action is fun. It's great for fans and people who don't know what Pokemon is. It's a blast.
For people who
definitely keeps you interested.
Yeah.
For people who aren't familiar with Pokemon, I think this is a good first-hand experience with the franchise as a whole, if you want to familiarize yourself with it.
So is there any other final thought?
I'm finding Pokemon games.
Yeah.
I like how both of you figured out the twist right away, and I'm just sitting here like, what happens next? Wait, and then Winter spoils the final plot twist. I'm just like, what?
But no,
was really clever of them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great though, Soup, that happened, because then like you were pleasantly surprised almost when that
like,
actually
it
did
makes
happen.
sense, but then I'm just sitting here like,
Yeah. But it was fun. Go see it.
go see it. Go see the movie.
Love the
Anyway, I'm Stir Bigler, and like always, I have no idea how to end videos. And I also want to bring something up. One of my friends commented on my Avengers Endgame video, and if you haven't seen that video, it's a first impressions. If you haven't seen that video, I mentioned that at the drive-in there were kids screaming out loud at the beginning of the movie, like really little kids screaming at the drive-in, and how it really annoyed me. And she thought I was bashing on little kids. I'm not mad at her. I can understand how she might have thought that. It sounded really bad out of context. I apologize for that. So I'll just explain this in a better way. What I meant when I said that is, no, I wasn't bashing on kids. Kids are cool. Okay, I mean, that would be super hypocritical if I was bashing on them, because I went to that drive-in when I was a little kid. I saw Madagascar when I was like 4 or 5 years old. When I say little kids, I should have gave like a specific age range. I mean like 2 to 4-year-olds out in the middle of like the drive-in screaming and crying out loud at the beginning of the movie. That really irritated me. And she goes on saying that like some parents can't afford babysitters. And yeah, I understand that, but the thing is that that's something that should be planned ahead of time for starters. And also, I don't really think Endgame is an appropriate film for kids that are around that age range. Maybe like a 6-year-old, maybe, because I know I was like around 6 years old when Iron Man came out, and a lot of kids my age were seeing that, so I guess 6 is okay if there's parental guidance. But like, if they're a toddler or somewhere around that age, I don't think Endgame is appropriate to be seeing that. And I know that's not always the case. There's some kids that could still be able to handle this. But even so, I don't think they would understand what's going on. I mean, even as an adult, this movie was hard to keep up on because there was just so much going on. And again, I was talking about 2-year-olds, like around that age range. So even if a 2-year-old watched the entire MCU, do you really think they're going to be able to comprehend every single thing that's going on the screen? I mean, kids have wild imaginations, believe it or not. It's insane, but let's be realistic about this. But no, I was more specifically mad at the parents. The drive-in, they should have stayed in their cars. Well, I mean, we could have stayed in our cars too, and yeah, but the thing is that you should still you should still occupy your kids. Your kids are your priority. There's still general audiences and critics like me that still want to enjoy this movie in the cinema without being disturbed. You still need to be making sure that your kids are behaving well at a movie. Which, to be honest, I don't even think 2 years old is really an appropriate age to be taking your kids out to the movies anyway. Specifically because of stuff like this. I don't even think 3 and 4 is appropriate. I mean, kids are really wild. Some of them, at least. A majority of them are. You know, why should some older people have to go into their cars just because someone else's kid is being way too loud while they're trying to enjoy a movie? You know, what if this was a movie theater? People can't bring their cars into movie theaters. So they can't watch the movie in peace when some little kid is being super loud in the theater. And luckily that is what the parents at the drive-in did end up doing. They did put their kids in the car and occupied them safely. And it started getting a lot more quiet. So good on them. That's why I was saying I was starting to tolerate it a little bit more, because things got to calm more down. So this problem was situated. I should have said that in the video. I should have said all of this in the video. Again, I'm sorry. Also, at this drive-in, they were showing a screening that was showing Wonder Park first, and then they were showing Avengers Endgame. They could have brought their kids over to there, because at this drive-in, you can actually see 2 movies at the same time, and the kids could have watched that. It started at 9, and then I think it ended at 10. So then at that time, they could have had the kids sleep in the car while the adults watched Endgame. and that's a 3-hour movie, so that would have ended at 1 a.m. But, I mean, I don't think the parents were concerned about going to work the next day because it was a Friday, and also the screening that I went to where the kids were really loud, Endgame started first at 9, and it was still almost 12 a.m. when the movie ended. It still would have been really late. And I think this problem would have been situated even if this wasn't the case either, even if this was like a movie theater. If a babysitter isn't available, you could have a friend or a family member watch your kids. I mean, make sure it's a really trustworthy friend. I mean, you never know with adults these days. Ew. But when I was little, my parents did that with me because we couldn't afford babysitters either. So I was always just watched by my grandparents or my brothers and sisters, older ones. And yeah, I understand these solutions aren't perfect. I know my friend's probably thinking that right now, and I respect your opinion. That's completely fine. I'm just saying if there is an option like that available, it's available. But you know, I actually really appreciate this comment, especially since this is someone I actually know in real life who commented on my video. A lot of people are just really scared to give constructive criticism and comment it or comment some type of flaw that's in somebody's content because they're worried of being judged. But no, I actually appreciate this because this helps my channel. Stuff like this definitely makes me more cautious about the type of stuff I say, especially since my first impressions videos aren't scripted, unlike my lost media videos and my reviews. So this really changed my perspective of how I should word things better. And if you're watching this, I'm really sorry if it sounded like I had an attitude in my tone of voice or anything. I was trying to be positive and respond back, give some of my opinions too, respect yours, and you were right to point me out on that too, because I think that some people would probably get confused by that video too, not just you. That video I made wasn't that great anyway. I kind of overused the F-bomb a lot. And like, I have nothing against swearing, I'm not super PC or anything. There's even studies saying that people who swear more usually have some level of intelligence. I don't know if I believe that entirely, but there are studies that say that apparently. But in that video, I was just becoming really repetitive and annoying, just overusing the F word. There's also a study saying that if you overuse the F word, you're not reading enough too, so man, I hope we're reading another good book in literature. I really liked Of Mice and Men, so hopefully we get another book that's really good, because I guess apparently I need to read more. But yeah, I apologize if it sounded like I was bashing on kids. I wasn't. I have 2 nieces. I love them. I have a nephew that I love. They're all really, really little. I'm not like one of those douche tubers who's all like, oh, this kid's YouTube video is so stupid. I'm gonna criticize a video made by a 5-year-old on YouTube. I'm not like one of those people. Kids are innocent. It's not their fault most of the time.